Hello everyone, this is Professor Cicerelli. Got another video for you today. It is on the four kinds of sentences that we have in English. Now it's important, the reason we are talking about four kinds of sentences is because if you've been watching the other videos, and I'll link them throughout this video, especially the ones on prepositions and conjunctions, and then subjects and verbs. You're going to need those to understand this video. But what we've been trying to do with these videos is, presuming that you watch them in order, is that we're starting with the smallest building blocks of a sentence, and then we're working our way up to understanding bigger and bigger pieces of a sentence, understanding what a phrase is, understanding what a clause is. And once we understand that, now we can understand the structure of entire sentences. And the goal with understanding this is that we can look at a sentence as good, careful readers and good, careful writers. We can look at a sentence and know exactly how it's set up, what every single word in the sentence is doing. It's when we don't understand how a sentence is put together, when we just sort of wing it, that's when the sentence has bad syntax, that's when the elements are out of order, that's a telltale sign of a writer who doesn't know what he or she's doing, is I just put words wherever I feel like it, and hopefully it makes sense. We want to be able to look at a sentence, tell you what every single word is doing, tell you how the sentence is set up. And so this lesson on the four kinds of sentences is the culmination of learning those small building blocks. Now we can put them together and see how whole sentences can be arranged. So there's four kinds of sentences. The first one is the simple sentence. The second one is the compound sentence. Fourth one is the complex sentence. And the fourth one is the combination of 2 and 3, the compound complex. What I would caution you against, just like I cautioned you in the run-on and fragment video, don't assume that a simple sentence is short. Don't assume that a complex sentence is long. That's going to get you into trouble. The way to understand these sentences is as follows. When it comes to a simple sentence is defined like this. Okay, simple sentence consists of one independent clause and no dependent clauses. Like I said, we've got to know what independent clauses are. We've got to know what dependent clauses are. But just a quick recap, a clause, unlike a phrase, a clause will always have a subject and a verb. What makes an independent clause independent is that subject and verb can stand on its own as a complete thought. Okay? A dependent clause has a subject and a verb as well because it's a clause, but it cannot stand on its own. And if you want more info on that, watch that video on phrases and clauses. Okay, so example of simple sentence. Sally drove to the store for groceries. Okay, what have I done here? So in red, you got Sally, subject. Blue, drove, verb, past tense. To the store, what's that? Remember? Leave me a comment. What's to the store? What's for groceries? Prepositional phrases. Okay, so just a reminder that, so what we've got there is one independent clause. You've got a subject and a verb attached to two different prepositional phrases. Okay, so I do not have a dependent clause there. All I have is an independent clause with two prepositional phrases attached to it. And I have the note here that adding phrases to a simple sentence does not change the fact that they are simple sentences. You can add, and I'll go out on a limb here and say you can add as many phrases you want to a single independent clause, and it will still be a simple sentence as long as what you're adding are phrases. Just a reminder of what we mean by phrases. We spoke about this, but it's worth a little bit of a review here. So phrases, remember, are missing subjects, missing both, or sorry, missing subject, missing verb, or missing both subject and verb. Okay? And so what you see here, prepositional phrases, missing subject, missing verb. Okay? So I'll give you some examples of prepositional phrases. In the woods, during the show. In the woods, we said, is in being the preposition, the woods being the object of that preposition. During is our preposition. The show is the object of that preposition. Okay. So if I take my sentence, just Sally drove to the store. If I take that simple sentence, that independent clause in red there, and then just add a prepositional phrase to it, I have not changed the fact that that is still a simple sentence. Okay? And it doesn't matter, by the way, where I put that. If I put my phrases at the beginning, at the end, the syntax might be wrong, but grammatically it's still going to be a simple sentence because you're adding phrases to it. You're not adding any clauses to it. So if I add a prepositional phrase to that independent clause, it's still a simple sentence. Okay? If I add a participial phrase, we talked about participles. I believe we talked about that in our subject-verb video. Participles are those words that look like verbs but are not verbs on their own. Okay. Tired, thinking, those are participles, not verbs on their own. Okay, so examples of two participial phrases. Tired from work, it would be a past participial phrase. Tired from work. Present participial phrase, thinking about dinner. If I add one of those to our simple sentence, Sally drove to the store, if I add thinking about dinner to it, I still have not changed fundamentally whether it's a simple sentence or not. Still a simple sentence. Okay. You've also got, like I said, phrases can be missing subject, missing verb, missing both. So you can also have verb phrases. Okay. A verb phrase, as the name suggests, is a phrase that's missing a subject. It has a verb, but it is missing a subject. So two examples of verb phrases. Grabbed a shopping cart, could not find a parking spot. Both of those have verbs. In the case of grabbed a shopping cart, grabbed is our verb in the past tense. In the case of could not find a parking spot, could is my it's what's called an auxiliary verb, or it's also what's called a modal. I think we talked about that in the verb video. Find really is my main verb there, but the two of them are working together. Both cases, they're missing subjects, so that's what makes them phrases, is they're missing subjects. Now, if I add with them to my original sentence, Sally drove to the store, I need to add them or attach them to the sentence with something. I couldn't just say Sally drove to the store, grabbed the shopping cart. I couldn't say that. I need to attach it to the sentence with something. And I'm using and, which is a coordinating conjunction. Okay, so Sally drove to the store and grabbed a shopping cart. Now, I still only have one independent clause, because remember, a clause is a subject and a verb that can exist on its own as a complete thought. I have not added another clause here. Okay, to Sally drove to the store and grabbed the shopping cart. I have not added another clause. All I've done is take my independent clause and add a verb phrase onto it. Add another verb phrase onto it. Okay, so still a simple sentence. So you're starting to see now in these last couple of examples, you're starting to see that I cannot just have the idea that simple sentences are short, because you can see that I could add two verb phrases to my sentence and it would still be a simple sentence. Sally drove to the store and grabbed a shopping cart, but couldn't find a parking spot. Okay, I'm adding verb phrases to that independent clause, but it's still just one independent clause. Last kind of phrase that we said we can remember, phrases are missing subject, missing verb, or missing both. In the case of In the case of what this next phrase, an appositive, it's a noun phrase, meaning that it has a noun but is missing a verb. Okay, so a noun phrase or an appositive is a phrase that has a noun but is missing a verb. Okay, so look at how we can add that noun phrase to a sentence like Sally drove to the store. So I give you two examples of noun phrases there. A mother of two boys, a former NASA employee. And you'll see that Sally, a former NASA employee, drove to the store. Still just a simple sentence, even though I have that additional information about Sally. It's noun information. It's really telling me information about the subject, but technically it's what's called a noun phrase because it has a noun in it. It doesn't have an adjective in it. It's noun information, but it's information about our subject. And so you'll notice also, and this will be a topic that I talk about in a future video, maybe next week or the week after, where we talk about commas. And you'll notice that the way that you take that appositive phrase and you put commas on both sides of it. Because that appositive phrase, that noun phrase, is kind of interrupting the sentence. It's interrupting the flow of the sentence. And so the way we block off that information is with commas. But still, simple sentence there. Sally, a former NASA employee, drove to the store. Simple sentence. Okay. So if a simple sentence is one independent clause and no independent, if a simple sentence is one independent clause but no dependence, a compound sentence is two or more independent clauses but no dependent clauses. Now remember, we talked about this when we talked about the video with phrases and clauses, is the way you attach independent, this was in the run-on video. This was in the run-on video. The way you attach two or more independent clauses to each other, you have a couple of options. You can make them separate sentences. I mean, that doesn't apply here. But you could connect them with semicolons, okay, which would apply here. Kind of a compound sentence that's two or more independents separated with a semicolon. You could also connect those independent clauses with a coordinating conjunction. And, but, or, so, for, yet. Okay? Those are our coordinating conjunctions. And so here you have an example. You have independent clause, first one. Sally drove to the store for groceries. Like we said, it's the same one from back here. But she had forgotten her wallet. She drove to the grocery store, but she had forgotten her wallet. Now notice, two independent thoughts here. How do I know that? Sally, subject, drove, verb. To the store, we said these were two prepositional phrases. But is our coordinating conjunction. She, new subject, even though she is referring to Sally, she is a subject, new subject. Had forgotten her wallet. Had, helping verb, forgotten, main verb there. And so, actually, what verb tense is that? Go back and watch that verb video. If you didn't watch that verb video, go back and look at that verb video. What verb tense is that? Leave it down in the comments. Did you write it? Past perfect tense. She had forgotten her wallet. So, but still, subject, verb, helping verb and verb, object. So two independent clauses connected with my coordinating conjunction. This is what makes a compound sentence. Okay? Next kind of sentence is a complex sentence. And so let's observe the definition here. A complex sentence is one independent clause, okay, and one or more dependent clauses. We've got to remember, dependent clause, it's a clause. It's got a subject and a verb. What makes it dependent? What makes it dependent is it cannot stand on its own. Why can it not stand on its own? Well, it begins a certain way, that means it can't stand on its own. Every dependent clause begins with, as I said in that other video, every dependent clause begins with a subordinating conjunction. A subordinating conjunction tells the reader, so it sets up the syntax of the sentence so that it tells the reader, here's one thought, but it's going to need another thought to make it complete. Okay, that's what a subordinating conjunction does. It makes one part of the sentence depend on, or makes it subordinate to another part of the sentence, the complete part of the sentence. So we said words like because, although, even though, before, after, etc. Those are examples of subordinating conjunctions. And so when you're trying to decide whether your sentence has dependent clauses in it, you need to look for any subordinating conjunctions. Does it have a subordinating conjunction? Is it then followed by a subject and a verb? Let's see what we have here. Okay. After she returned from work. After. There's our subordinating conjunction. Is it followed by a subject and a verb? You bet it is. She, subject, returned, verb, from work, prepositional phrase. Okay. Complete subject and a verb here, but attached to a subordinating conjunction, which means dependent clause. After she returned from work, and even though she was tired, Sally drove to the store for groceries. Okay, now, I mean, I gave it away by color coding it, but, and even though she was tired, even though she was tired, even though, subordinating conjunction, yeah. Is it followed by a subject and a verb? Yes, she. Verb, was, tired, adjective. Okay, how are those two dependent clauses connected? With a coordinating conjunction. And if you remember back to that conjunction and preposition video, conjunctions, coordinating conjunctions like and, but, or, they show grammatical equality. Okay, so what am I showing here? What I'm showing is I have a dependent clause here, I've got an equal sign here with my and then I've got another dependent clause right after it. Okay, so I've got two dependent clauses here connected with a coordinating conjunction. Neither one of them, though, can stand on their own. If I just read the first part of that sentence without the red highlighted part, after she returned from work and even though she was tired, period, you'd realize that was a fragment because it's just the two dependent clauses with nothing. The thought's incomplete. And so we need that independent clause, Sally drove to the store for groceries. Okay. And like I said, with when we were talking about simple sentences and how you can put the phrases where you place the phrases doesn't change the fact that it's still a simple sentence. Same thing with your complex sentence. It doesn't matter whether those dependent clauses come first or second. They still make the sentence complex if you're adding dependent clauses onto it. Okay, so here, the sentence is labeled for you. It's color-coded for you. And just take note that there are two dependent clauses and one independent clause. That makes it a complex sentence. The only part of that sentence there that can stand on its own is the red part. The rest of it needs or depends on the red part. Okay, lastly is, as I said at the beginning of the video, is a combination of this one, and that's the compound complex. Okay. A compound complex, well, we know what a compound is. It's two or more independent clauses. We know what a complex is. It's this. So the combination is two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. So now the sentences are starting to get long. I mean, they're starting to get longer here with compound complex, but like I said, you could still have a shorter sentence. Maybe, I mean, I don't want to make a rule about how short, what's the shortest possible length that a compound complex can be, but you should not just go on, well, the sentence is long, so therefore it's this one. You should still be able to break it down and diagram it the way I'm doing it. So two or more independents, one or more dependents. Okay, so let's have a look at the example. After she returned from work, Sally drove to the store for groceries, but when she got there, she realized that she didn't have her wallet. Okay. So look, after she returned from work, after subordinating conjunction. Yep. Is that subordinating conjunction followed by a subject and a verb, making it a clause? Yes. Return from work. Sally drove to the store for groceries. Is that a complete thought? Yes. It doesn't begin with a subordinating conjunction. Sally is the beginning of it. Okay. Sally is just the subject. It has a subject and a verb, and it's followed by some prepositional phrases. It can stand on its own as a complete thought. But coordinating conjunction, showing grammatical equality. So what's the equality here? What are we connecting? Well, we've got another dependent clause. How do I know it's dependent? When. Is when a subordinating conjunction? Yes. Is it followed by a subject and a verb? Yes. She, subject, verb, got. There, object. She realized that she didn't have her wallet. Okay. She realized, she, subject, realized, verb, that she didn't have her wallet. Technically, that clause, that she didn't have her wallet, is really, it's what's called a complementary clause. It's sort of it's telling you information about what she realized. Yes, it has a subject and a verb in it. She didn't have, but it's not really dependent or independent. It's sort of it's complement, because it begins with that. It's sort of complementing the verb. It's telling you information about the verb. She's not just realized. It's telling you what she's realizing, basically. So in a way, it's sort of acting like an adverb, I guess you could say. This whole piece, it's telling you information about what she realized. But still, the red part here, independent clause. It can stand on its own. She realized that she didn't have her wallet. Complete thought. Right? So count them up. I've got 2 dependent clauses, 2 independent clauses, and look at how they are connected. Like I said, next week or the week after, when we talk about commas, I'm going to tell you where to place those commas, where they should be, where they should not be. But as you're seeing here, I've got my dependent clause at the beginning, comma between my dependent and my independent, then comma before my coordinating conjunction that's has complete thought after it. So you're seeing that we're going to lay out some comma rules in some future videos. Okay, so those are the 4 types of sentences. Now, in order to be able to identify them, you need to have that base knowledge. You need to have that building block knowledge that we talked about. What is a clause? What makes a clause a clause? What makes an object a subject a subject? You need that base knowledge to be able to understand this stuff. But once you understand those building blocks, you should be able to work your way up to this. Okay, now we've gone through the 4 different kinds. So simple sentence. So we've gone through the 4 types. Now what I want you to do is I want you to try these sentences. Okay, I'll do the first. Which one will I do? I'll do the first one for you, and then I'll let you guys do the last 3 and leave the comments down below. I'll pin the answers down below as I've been doing. Okay. John was the only person who ate dinner and the only one who asked for dessert. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in this sentence. We've got relative pronouns. We've got who and whom, which we had another video on. So we've got some good stuff going on here. Okay, so let's look. So we're asking ourselves, do we have more than one independent clause? If so, then do we have any dependent clauses? If so, do we have more than one dependent clause? And then that'll tell us how we have to label this. So let's look. So John was the only person who ate dinner. What do I have? Just before my and, what do I have there? Okay. John, subject. Was, verb. It's the verb to be in the past tense. John was. The only person, noun. You could say it's. We talked about this when we talked about the predicate nominative. It's not really an object here. It's really another way. It's really the only person who ate dinner is another way of naming John. So it's really subject, verb, subject, because the only person who ate dinner is telling you more information about John. But I have a subject and a verb and my subject it's elaborating upon my subject. And so I have a complete thought there. John was the only one who ate dinner. That's a complete thought. Now, who ate dinner? Relative pronoun, telling you information about this person. Okay. So I've got independent clause here. Now, what is that independent clause attached to? Is it attached to another independent clause? Let's check. Okay, remember, independent clause is subject, verb, can stand on its own. Okay. I have and then I have the only one who asked for dinner. Is that a complete thought with a subject and a verb? No. It's, what would we call that? The only one who asked for dinner, it's missing a verb. There is a noun there. And I would even say it's a subject because it's again that it's naming John. So an example of it's renaming our subject, or telling us more information about our subject. So it's another predicate nominative there. But it's not complete. It's not a complete thought. I could not write the only one who asked for dinner as a complete thought because it's missing a verb. Right? So noun phrase. It's an example of a noun phrase. So what does that mean then if I have an independent clause, but it's only attached to a noun phrase? Remember this? And that rule about adding phrases does not change whether it's a simple sentence. So that's what we're talking about here. That's what we're talking about for the first one, is an independent clause attached to a noun phrase. Still just a simple sentence. So the first one is a simple sentence. Okay, now try the last three on your own. And don't just look at my comments. I mean, I know that there's a temptation to just cheat and look at my pinned comments, but try them on your own. Pause the video, try them on your own, and then go and look at my comments and see if you get them correct. But try those last three and leave your comments down below. Okay, so that was our video on the 4 types of sentences. Thanks, everybody.